ABBA's second album Waterloo was released in 1974. It is 50 years old. In this video we are going to explore the creation of the album and dive into every song. Waterloo is about a diversity of styles, about ABBA's early experimentation and freestyle. But two things are most remarkable to me. Even though this album is generally an uplifting thrill of pop glam, upbeat and sunshine, below the surface you will find deep melancholia. And in the end, you may even be surprised at how many songs Björn and Benny are actually very fond of. Let's go back in time. Hey! So, let's continue where we left off. Last year we explored the making of ABBA's debut album Ring Ring. As ABBA was recording their first LP, they didn't even realize if this was only a temporary project. As soon as the album and singles were released and became unusually successful, it became clear that they should continue to combine their talent as a group. By the autumn of 1973, ABBA had just finished a massive tour through Sweden with no less than 80 concerts. Only a few weeks later, Björn and Benny were ready with brand new songs to be recorded. ABBA was back in the studio, and this should be a very promising start to the sessions. Already the first songs show the diversity of the forthcoming album, not only in style and genre, but how ABBA recorded these songs. With dance while the music still goes on, ABBA started with one of the strongest, most outstanding tracks from the album. Several things make this song outstanding. It is one of the songs with which Björn and Benny are especially pleased with. It's close to those early 1960s Phil Spector type of songs, which they really liked. Carl Magnus Palm also compares it with the sonic aesthetics of Brian Wilson, who in turn was also heavily inspired by Phil Spector. The iconic punchy drums were played by ABBA's loyal session player Ola Bromkert. What makes it also special is the fact that it's the only ABBA song where the keyboards are not played by Benny. Instead, John Rabbit Bundrick plays piano. On top of that, for the one and only time, the bass is played by Per Sahlberg. Both musicians were friends with ABBA's core guitarist Janne Schaffer, who plays guitar on the track. The replacement of Benny's keyboards by having someone else play is one of those experimental exceptions in ABBA's recordings. For Benny himself, it wasn't too much fun. He said, "Everyone thought it was fun, except me. I wanted to play myself." He still praises the song itself, and for me personally, I'm all with Benny. This is one of my personal highlights. I love the collision of vibes. It's an upbeat dance track which is indicated in the title itself, and yet there is an incredible melancholy to it. So where does this melancholy come from? Firstly, from the lyrics. The mood of eternal farewell, that final dance or time that you have together with a loved one. One more time. I love the line, "Was it just a dream? Everything we did, everything we had." It is remarkable that a song like this was written and recorded even so early on in ABBA's career. One of the most captivating elements is this feeling that the song goes on, again, like the title indicates, that it never ends and that you don't want it to end. Most intriguingly, it is repetitive on the one hand, but on the other hand, it gets more and more exciting with the course of the song, because of the brilliant but subtle key changes. All of that brings this exciting feeling of uplifting thrill and melancholia at the same time. Despite Björn and Benny's positive feedback about the song itself, Björn thinks that the title is too long. Personally, I think that is especially what makes the song so intriguing. Generally speaking, those few ABBA songs with bracket names in the song titles always give the songs something special. Love isn't easy, but it sure is hard enough. Lovers live a little longer, and certainly Gimme Gimme Gimme, A Man After Midnight. On the same day, an untitled song was recorded. This may or may not have been an outtake, and if so, this would be the only outtake from the Waterloo sessions. Every song written and recorded in the next 4 months was included on the album. The sessions continued 2 weeks later when Björn and Benny were ready with 4 more songs. And once again, they continued to have some very special recordings. Suzy-Hang-Around is special for 2 reasons. It is Benny's one and only entire lead vocal on an ABBA song, and Benny wrote the lyrics. He only wrote lyrics to 3 ABBA songs. An interesting observation was made between the story of 2 of those songs written by Benny. Me and Bobby's brother and Suzy-Hang-Around both go back to the early days of childhood memories, but this time with a darker twist, when the boys don't allow the girl to play with them. Benny doesn't remember why the topic of childhood stories seems to be his shtick. He just knows that he had to write words to the songs. Personally, I think it probably goes back to the way how Björn wrote lyrics, trying to get a feel for the melody and music of a song. In this case, Suzy-Hang-Around and Me and Bobby do sound like that longing for nostalgia. Wistful elements in the music make them beautiful and melancholic. The working title for Suzy-Hang-Around was Where the Sunshine Is, and that kind of confirms this vibe of desire and wishfulness. I love how the beautiful, nostalgic music of the song collide with the lyrics. Look for a friend of your own, better come back when you're grown, nobody wants you around here, and that's for sure. For all of these reasons, this song is another one of my personal favorites from the album. I love the atmosphere, the soundscape of synthesizers and distinctive drum playing, and I love Benny's voice. I think it does have a lot of charm and personality. Benny disagrees, he doesn't like his singing voice, he even calls it ugly, which I don't see at all. But about the song in general, Benny is quite positive. He said that it's a pretty good tune and the recording is quite nice, which is a very praising statement for Benny's standards. In 2013, he even played a piano version for Ice the Side. In 2006, Benny's son Ludwig performed a 5-minute live version of Suzy-Hang-Around at the International ABBA Day in the Netherlands. The second song recorded on the same day also gets positive feedback from Björn and Benny and continues the ongoing variety of genres and experimentation from this period. My Mama Said brings together Agnetha and Frida on joint lead vocals and leads us into funk and jazz. The reason for this change in style is simply because, according to Benny, they were searching a little and also trying to have variation on the album. They now recorded 2 songs with easy listening, sunshine pop, a little nostalgic 60s vibes. Now it was time for dreamy funk and jazz. In 2021, Agnetha said about the song, "This is probably the closest to Motown we ever came." With this song on the album, ABBA also continued to give us anomalies unusual in ABBA's entire recording output. My Mama Said is one of the few times that an ABBA track features improvised playing, in this case a freestyle guitar solo by Janne Schaffer. Björn said about the song, "It's pretty cool." One day later, the sessions continued with 2 more songs. Once again, both of them give us Frida and Agnetha on joint lead vocals, and both songs still get positive feedback from Björn and Benny. What About Livingstone is another one of my personal hidden favorites. It's such a cool track with a bumping beat, the mini-moog and bass playing, and the mesmerizing lead vocals, the overlapping counterparts and harmonies at the end. Björn is quite fond of the song, and Benny enjoys how the chorus starts exactly like it ends, with the same phrase. The second song from this day became the second single for the album. Benny calls it a good song and a good recording, tight and slick. Frida said, "I remember that Agnetha and I tried to sound a little sexy when we recorded the vocals. I'm not sure that we succeeded. I think they certainly sound sexy on the Swedish version of the song, where they even added some stimulating moaning just before the bridge begins. Honey Honey is the only song on the album that has real string overdubs. The strings on the other songs on the album were played by Benny on Melodrama. It took another 4 weeks for the next song to be written and recorded, and from those sweet, perhaps sexy sounds of the ladies in Honey Honey, they now became damsels in distress. King Kong Song was born. Benny said, "My kids were immediately sold on King Kong Song." But Björn and Benny don't like the song at all. And to be honest, I could not disagree more with Björn and Benny. This track is number 3 on the album for a reason. Personally, it gets me going every time. The composition is extremely catchy, the rhythm, beats, the playing of drums and bass is all superb. I think the entire arrangement and production are really strong. I love the harmonies and Benny's low backing vocals during the chorus. This is one of the tracks, one of the many ABBA tracks, where, in my opinion, all of these elements come together into one perfect flow that makes me wobble and dance, and ecstatic with pure joy. Frida and Agnetha scream their lungs out in anguish of the infamous King Kong, or perhaps they were even afraid of the individual from the song's early lyrics. The working title for the song was Mr. Sex. The legacy of King Kong Song is also fascinating. It became the B-side of Honey Honey, and King Kong Song reached number 4 on the Swedish charts. Both songs were performed live on ABBA's next concert tour. Probably for this occasion, ABBA even created an a cappella mix of the original studio recording, which remains unreleased in the archives. This mix highlights all the harmony parts of the song, probably to understand and rehearse the vocal parts in preparation of ABBA's tour in 1974. In 1977, King Kong Song received a lot of airplay in Australia due to the most recent film version from 1976. When I was a child, I was so excited when I found out that there is a film from around the time of the song, and I always wondered if there was any connection between the two. Now I know there is something to it. With this song, ABBA had more than half of the album ready, but now it gets exciting because things would make a very big turn. On the same day when King Kong Song was recorded, it was announced that Björn, Benny and manager Stig Andersson were invited again to submit a song for Sweden's pre-selection of the Eurovision Song Contest 1974. Because of that, the rest of the album, 5 more songs, were all written and recorded in December 1973. 2 of them became ABBA's contender for the Eurovision Song Contest, 2 other ones give us adventurous trips to glam rock and reggae, and the first one to be recorded in December became the solo lead spot for Frida. Gonna Sing You My Love Song was the final song for which Benny wrote lyrics. Maybe his intense contribution to the writing of this song also made it a natural choice for his fiancée Frida to sing lead vocals on this ballad. Benny says about the music of this song that it has a good transition into the bridge. 4 days later, the real deal happened and history was made. Waterloo was recorded on the 17th of December 1973. The catchy chorus was written at Björn and Benny's songwriting cabin on the island Viksö, but the verses were written at Benny and Frida's home in Vallentuna. The uptempo, cheerful, major key elements made it a perfect contender for the Eurovision Song Contest. The recording sessions for the song show how much ABBA's musicians were very important for their recordings. It was guitarist Janne Schaffer who came up with the unforgettable bass and guitar riff of Waterloo. It was inspired by one of the songs from his then recent solo album. We will talk more about the creation of this important song in an upcoming standalone episode very soon. On the same day, ABBA recorded Watch Out, which became the B-side for the Waterloo single. Björn said, "This is me trying to sound like Noddy Holder and Slade." Björn and Benny dismissed this song and called it completely worthless filler material. The only thing they praise is Janne Schaffer's guitar riff, which is played on a guitar synthesizer. Carl Magnus Palm goes on to praise the hoarse vocals, squealing mini-moog, fuzzy guitar and menacing lyrics. And on top of all of that, I personally love the sound of Agnetha and Frida, whose joined backing voices cut through the song like a knife. I love the harsh banging drums, and I really enjoy from time to time the overall craziness and rough edge of Watch Out. You have to play this song loud. Within the next 2 days, just before Christmas 1973, the final 2 songs for the album were recorded. And ABBA was ending the sessions with 2 more favorites, for the ABBA members, for fans and for myself. Sitting in the Palm Tree takes us into exotic Caribbean rhythms and reggae-style arrangements. And once again, this song shows the important contributions of ABBA's studio band. We talked in depth about the creation of this song in a special episode on the channel. The final song was Hasta, Mañana. It became another ballad, and this time Agnetha's solo spot on the album. The song is a mixture of English music hall, German vibes, European Schlager and melodrama. This song is also an example of the creative input of the ladies to ABBA's recordings. In this case, Agnetha was inspired by the style of her biggest teen idol from the 1960s, Connie Francis. I ended up alone in the studio and fooled around a bit, thinking that I might do it like Connie Francis would. I sang it in that really emotional way, and then we found that we were on the right way. Hasta Mañana is one of Björn and Benny's biggest favorites. The composition and recording turned out so good that they even considered this song as ABBA's choice and selection for the Eurovision Song Contest. Eventually, the ultimate choice became Waterloo, the album's lead single, the album's title, even their first music video later in the year, and of course, the real beginning of ABBA's international breakthrough.
Sweden, they've never won it, but they've surely got to be up amongst the reckoning with that one.
Now, it seems like ABBA just recorded all of these songs on those specific dates and were done, but there is much more to it. By comparison to Ring Ring or subsequent albums, they were indeed fast and productive this time around. It took ABBA 4 months to write and record all of the songs for Waterloo. But during this period in late 1973, they mainly laid down the backing tracks for those songs. ABBA continued to work on the songs for 2 more months in January and February 1974, so they worked on the entire album for 6 months altogether. This final period is when ABBA recorded and overdubbed vocals and backing harmonies for many of the songs and when they mixed the tracks. One fascinating aspect is how many of the songs were technically changed into a different tempo and pitch. Waterloo, Honey Honey and Suzy-Hang-Around were all slightly sped up. Hasta Mañana was slowed down. ABBA used this trick also for specific elements within their songs to make it sparkly and brighter. Above all, it is fascinating to see that the one song that really stood out from all mixing sessions for this album was their choice for Eurovision, Waterloo. ABBA had to get it just right. They worked on the song for several weeks, tried out a variety of mixes and overdubs. For the Swedish and English versions of Waterloo, ABBA tried out more than 30 different mixes until they nailed it to their satisfaction. The final mixes were done just days before the song would premiere at the Swedish pre-selection, and it all paid off. We now have a collection of 11 brand new ABBA songs. So to wrap it all up for today, let's take a look at the final album sequence and the overall vibe. The early lyrics of ABBA are sometimes convicted for being a little too easy, too empty even, and this is an opinion I could never relate to. Yes, Björn did make a development as a lyricist, as did all of them in their craft. But even early on with the Waterloo album, the stories, themes and even some interconnections between songs are fascinating, no matter if it was intended that way or not. Last year we explored how ABBA's debut album Ring Ring is like a manifestation of youth, the innocent fun times that are remarkably fleeting and that will never come back again. On Waterloo, I personally can feel some sort of progress from childhood and youth to adolescence, the years when you fall in love, lose one another, and when you are about to break free. It certainly kicks off with the title track when they finally fall in love. This mood quickly changes and the lovers are more and more separated. On Sitting in the Palm Tree, the boy is trying to get back the attention of his girl. On Hasta Mañana, spring and summer are gone. Where is the dream we were dreaming? Where did they go? I just don't know. This is basically picked up again on Dance While the Music Still Goes On. Was it just a dream? Everything we did, everything we had. But it's not only about the loss and farewell of lovers. On My Mama Said, the protagonist is a teenage girl who wants to break free from her parents and live her own life. And What About Livingstone is an ode to life exploration itself. Generally speaking, there is a lot of flirtation, easygoing love vibes, but every now and then you can hear and feel this deeper melancholic undertone, the sense that everything is or may be coming to an end. You can hear it on the key changes and in the words of Dance While the Music Still Goes On, the wistfulness of Hasta Mañana, the dreamy and subtly darker moments of My Mama Said, and the reflective pensiveness of Gonna Sing You My Love Song. And before you know it, the final song on the album, in my opinion, couldn't be more perfect. Suzy-Hang-Around is a tremendous send-off. One more time, we are back to that state of reminiscence, to those nostalgic feeling for days long gone, and again with a somewhat darker twist. I don't want to overanalyze things like that, and again I'm not saying that all of this was deliberately put this way or intentionally hangs together. But this is what is there for us to listen to and to make sense of. The music, the stories, the singing and production, the output that became ABBA's second album 50 years ago. For me, Waterloo mixes ABBA's clean pop nature with a somewhat rough edge, with literal flirtations of different genres from reggae, funk and jazz to Motown, glam rock, ballads and Schlager. The unexpected sides of ABBA are not only revealed towards the end of their career, but in a completely different way even this early on in their first albums. And all of that is colored with the distinctive sound and unique touch of ABBA. So here's to 50 years of Waterloo.